Chapter 11. You can get a discount by saying my name. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Aaron beamed as he stepped out of Ollivander's wand shop. He'd gotten everything he wanted, including 2 wands from his uncle, one pure white, made of vine wood and unicorn hair, and one pure black, made of yew and dragon heartstring. Uncle Jeans, this is what they call gifted. Now you gotta believe I can be a master before graduation. Aaron said, puffed up with pride. Well, with all due respect, the magical world isn't exactly hurting for talented wizards. This just means you're ahead of the curve, but the road ahead is a marathon, not a sprint. Ugh, party pooper. Can't you just say something nice to make me feel good? Nope, sometimes the truth hurts. Jean smiled faintly. Next up, uniforms. We can just swing by and pick them up. I gave Madame Malkin your sizes 2 weeks ago, so she should have them ready to go. Aaron stroked Abe's head and said, Uncle Jeans, I hate to ask, but did you get Abe's clothes sorted out? Jeans looked at the baby dragon in Aaron's arms, picturing the little guy's wardrobe. His cheeks twitched. Forget about it. Your folks went overboard and got him like 20 outfits. 5 or 6 for each season. Honestly, you probably won't have as many clothes when you're at school. Besides, Madame Malkin doesn't exactly do pet couture. Got it. Abe nodded eagerly. 20 outfits were plenty. He was running out of closet space as it was. Okay. Uniforms first. Aaron said. 2 minutes later, they walked into Madame Malkin's robes for all occasions. A plump woman in a purple robe laughed. Thought you weren't coming. No way. They'd probably kick me out of Hogwarts if I didn't have a uniform. Can't believe our little boss is old enough for school. Mrs. Malkin smiled, then asked a witch to fetch Aaron's clothes. 3 sets of plain black work robes, a plain black pointed hat, a pair of protective gloves, and a winter cloak. I've already put your name tag on everything. Want to try them on? Nah, I trust your shop's work. I got faith in you. Aaron smiled, taking the clothes and handing them to the butler. Just then, a girl in a black robe walked out from the back. She had thick brown hair and an air of confidence about her, like a swan. This young lady is also a new student at Hogwarts. Should I introduce you? Mrs. Malkin asked. Sure. Aaron raised his eyebrows. He was about to greet his future classmate when he realized she was beelining straight for him. Well, not exactly him. She went straight for Abe, who was on the floor. So cute. Aaron was momentarily dumbfounded. Who am I? Where am I? What am I even doing? He was the young master, but he was being one-upped by a pet. I'll leave you two to it. Mrs. Malkin looked a little embarrassed, her face a little red. Jeans covered his mouth, trying not to laugh. Ahem. Aaron looked at the girl, putting on his serious face. I appreciate your admiration, but grabbing someone's pet without asking is a little impolite. Please and thank you. The girl blushed, saying awkwardly, sorry, I thought this kitten was a stray. Aaron was dumbfounded. If you're gonna jump to conclusions like that, at least check if it's wearing clothes. Abe doesn't exactly look like he lives on the streets. So he's called Abe. That's not the point. Can I have him back? The girl looked at the cat in her arms, reluctant to let go. Fine, keep holding him for a bit. Aaron said, sighing. She was a future classmate, and Abe didn't seem to mind. You're going to Hogwarts too, right? Yep, school starts in 3 days. The girl said excitedly, extending her hand. I'm Hermione Granger. Aaron Gaius. Aaron shook her hand, then his eyes widened. Wait, what did you say your name was? Hermione Granger. Is something wrong? No, no problem at all. Aaron smiled, surprised to meet the heroine before school even started. He wasn't mentally prepared for this at all. Are you here in Diagon Alley by yourself? No, my parents are here too. I'm meeting them here. They're pretty curious about all this, so they went exploring. That makes sense. Aaron nodded. Hermione was Muggle-born, so it was natural for her parents to be fascinated. Have you got all your school supplies yet? Everything except a wand. Hermione said expectantly. Aaron knew that look. He'd been just as excited in front of his uncle's shop, but now he was a little embarrassed. He'd better be a bit more chill. If you mention my name when you go to buy a wand, the owner might give you a discount. Really? Hermione looked surprised. Totally. Aaron said confidently. He didn't know if his uncle would sell it at cost, but he would at least give her a little something. It wasn't just Ollivanders. After 3 years in Diagon Alley, Aaron got that kind of treatment in other stores too. If only Hermione had met him sooner, she could have saved a few bucks on everything. Okay, I'll trust you. But don't lie. Wouldn't dream of it. Aaron vowed. He wanted to chat with Hermione longer, but a man and a woman walked in. Mom and Dad. Hermione greeted them. Hermione, who's this? Hermione's father asked. I'm Aaron, a future classmate. Aaron said politely. Hermione nodded, reluctantly handing Abe back to Aaron. Nice to meet you, Aaron. I'm off to get a wand. See you in 3 days. See ya. The two groups left Madame Malkin's and walked in different directions. 10 minutes later, Aaron and Jeans picked up the books they'd reserved, then hit up the cauldron shop and apothecary for the rest of their equipment. On the way back, they passed the broom shop. Aaron glanced inside and saw a Nimbus 2000 just waiting for its owner. Something you want, master? Jeans asked. Aaron nodded, then shook his head, just curious. Besides, first-year students aren't allowed to bring their own brooms. I'm good. You could always try it out in the 3 days before school starts. Nah. Brooms aren't my thing. Aaron said. He had a magic carpet in his system store that he hadn't gotten yet. Way better than a broom. Chapter 12. A somewhat downtrodden boy in front of the platform. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On September 1st, Aaron woke up early and, with Jeans at his side, hurried to King's Cross Station. He pushed a trolley laden with 2 big suitcases. One held his clothes and textbooks, the other stuff. He had 2 wands stashed on him. He planned to use the black one as his go-to, but the white one was his ace in the hole for emergencies. Jeans muttered a little levitation spell over the suitcases, making them feel lighter than they looked. Perched on top of one of the suitcases was a ridiculously cute white kitten in clothes. Abe, just chilling on the luggage, was definitely drawing attention. Aaron shot Jeans a nervous but excited smile. Uncle Jeans, once I'm inside, you can't keep tabs on me anymore. Are you gonna miss me? Missing you? I've had time to mentally prepare. Besides, the guys tailing you are probably doing a happy dance. Aaron's face fell. He was 11 and still couldn't shake off his secret security detail, which bugged him. Speaking of, can you tell me who they are? Aaron asked, hopeful. Jeans hesitated. There are 6 of them, working in pairs. 2 guys shadow you for 3 days, then they switch out. They're all top-tier aura material. Lucky for them, you mostly hang around Diagon Alley and the school. If you were bouncing all over the place, they'd have to apparate all the time just to keep up with shift changes. Ha! Aaron scoffed. He wasn't going to forget this. Someday, when he was strong enough, they'd all pay. Revenge was a dish best served cold. He wasn't some mustache-twirling villain, but he wasn't about to wait 10 years, either. Jeans saw Aaron's expression change and raised his eyebrows. He had a silent moment of sympathy for those bodyguards. As the butler, he wouldn't be the one getting payback, but he knew those guys were in for it. Inside the station, Aaron and Jeans said their goodbyes. He slowly pushed the trolley alone, breathing in the freedom of the station. Sure, his sense of security had just plummeted, but he felt amazingly relaxed. He passed Platform 1, Platform 2, and didn't stop until he reached Platform 9. He spotted a boy up ahead pushing a similar trolley. A snowy owl sat patiently in a cage on top. The kid was arguing with the station guard. but it didn't seem to be going well. The guard stomped off, leaving the boy looking lost and anxious. Aaron immediately guessed that the kid was another first year, clueless about how to get to the platform. Asking a muggle about a magic school platform was a recipe for disaster. Figuring he might be a classmate, Aaron decided to help and pushed his trolley over. "Hey!" That the simple greeting startled the boy. He spun around, looking at Aaron with a surprised expression. It wasn't Aaron himself that surprised him, but the fact that Aaron was pushing a similar trolley. If anything, that made him even more nervous. "Looks like you could use a hand." Yeah, do you know how to get to platform 9 3/4? The boy asked, a little embarrassed. "You've come to the right guy. I know exactly where it is, but, seems weird for a young wizard about to start school to not know where the platform is. No family with you." That the boy hesitated, obviously holding something back. Aaron saw he wasn't going to get the full story. "Come on. Looks like you and your family aren't exactly close." "Thanks," the boy mumbled, trailing after Aaron. They walked a short distance and stopped between platforms 9 and 10. Aaron pointed to the brick wall between the platforms. "That's it. Platform 9 3/4. Just run right through it." The boy nodded, then stared at the wall in disbelief. "You're saying we have to crash into it?" "Yep. You go first," Aaron said. The boy hesitated, eyeing Aaron suspiciously. Was this guy messing with him? "Maybe you should go first. I've never done this before." "That's why you should go first. If I go in, I can't come back out to help you," Aaron said. He frowned at the shy boy, who still seemed unsure. "You don't trust me?" The boy thought for a moment. "A little, yeah. I mean, it's a wall. And we just met." Aaron was a little offended. He was just trying to help a future classmate get to the platform, and this guy was acting like he was trying to scam him. "Let me ask you something. Are you a half-blood, a pure-blood, or are your parents muggles?" "My parents were both wizards," the boy said hesitantly. "Huh?" Aaron scrutinized the cautious boy. "That's weird. You should know this stuff. But you don't seem to know much about the wizarding world." "My parents died when I was a baby. I've been living with my aunt and uncle." "Ah. That explains it," Aaron said, his face clearing. "They're not nice people, are they?" "No, they're not." "Wait, how did you know?" "You're wearing clothes that are 3 sizes too big, and your glasses are held together with tape. What kind of family treats their relatives like that?" Aaron pointed at the boy's clothes and glasses, his eye twitching. It was the first day of school. He was dressed like a pauper. Luckily, they wore school uniforms at Hogwarts, so he wouldn't need those clothes. Still, the boy was in rough shape. Who knew if he even had a uniform? "Okay, I get why you don't trust me. You're still thinking like a muggle." "I guess I can let it slide," Aaron said, gesturing to the wall. "This wall is only a wall to muggles. To a wizard, it's a door. Your door to the magical world. I'll show you one time, but after that, you're on your own." The boy looked worried. He was starting to think he'd made a mistake, that Aaron was telling the truth. Besides, what did he have to lose? Crashing into a wall was better than the miserable school his aunt and uncle had lined up for him. Worst case, he'd get laughed at. "Wait, maybe I should go first." The boy said quickly. Aaron stopped and looked back, amused. "You sure?" Not really, but I don't know any other way, so I might as well give it a shot." "Good call," Aaron said, snapping his fingers. "You're a little smarter than you look. Go for it." The boy took a deep breath and pushed the trolley forward. As he neared the wall, he closed his eyes, bracing for impact, but nothing happened. He passed right through the wall and found himself on the real platform 9 3/4. Aaron watched the boy disappear, shrugged, and calmly pushed his trolley through the wall. This door only needed a running start for those who enjoyed the sensation, or who weren't ready. He didn't need it at all. Chapter 13 A Chance Encounter. this must be a coincidence. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A red and black train, the Hogwarts Express, hissed steam as it pulled into the platform, marked platform 93/4, the station was packed, it was the first day of school. Wizarding parents bustled about, many pushing strollers, cats and owls, the school's permitted pets, were everywhere. Only a few kids clutched toads. Aaron noticed the boy he was with was staring, wide-eyed, taking it all in. His gaze lingered longest on the train. Aaron felt a pang of sympathy. The kid clearly knew next to nothing about the magical world, and probably even less about the Muggle world. His excited posture suggested he hadn't even ridden a train before. Ahem. You seem excited, but the train leaves in about 10 minutes. Find a compartment and stow your luggage and owl. The boy snapped to attention, grateful. Thank you. What's your name? Just call me Aaron. It was nothing. Oh. The boy nodded, hesitating. They navigated through the crowd and found an empty compartment. Aaron easily stowed his lighter bag, but the boy struggled. He had a lot of stuff, and it was heavy. He tugged and strained, but couldn't lift it. Sigh, Aaron said. You should feel honored. This is the first time I've ever helped anyone with their luggage. Sorry, the boy mumbled, embarrassed. Aaron, hoping to impress his future classmate, grabbed the trunk, but even he found it surprisingly heavy. Ahem. This is heavier than it looks. Should I get someone to help? Nah, it's just a suitcase. No big deal. Aaron muttered, eyeing the 10 or so meters to the compartment and thinking it was the longest walk he'd take all day. Need a hand? A voice came from behind them, a little flippant, but music to Aaron's ears. No. The boy started. Before he could finish, Aaron cut him off. That would be amazing. Didn't you just say? Asking for help and getting offered help are two different things. Aaron said with a surprising degree of confidence for his age. Trust me, you'll understand someday. The boy seemed to grasp the concept. Glancing at the redhead, he shyly and hesitantly said, I think I could use some help. He immediately turned and yelled, Hey, Fred, come give us a hand. A red-haired boy, identical to the first, appeared, twins. They looked exactly alike and even had matching luggage. With the extra help, they finally managed to haul the trunk into the compartment. Thanks so much. We'd have been here all day by ourselves. The boy exclaimed. Aaron pulled 2 lollipops from Abe's pocket, ignoring the young dragon's offended look. Even though I had nothing to do with this trunk, I still want to show my appreciation. Please, take these. Well. One of the twins hesitated. The lollipops were unopened, but they were technically being swiped from a pet. Even for them, swiping candy from an animal felt a little low. No need, it was no problem at all. The other twin said quickly. Abe's big eyes narrowed, and he snatched his candy back from Aaron's hand. The first twin's eyes lit up, looking at Abe with undisguised eagerness. Your cat's so cute. Could we hold him? Just for a second? I don't think so. Abe doesn't like strangers. Too bad, the twin said regretfully. A shout came from outside the train. Fred. George. Are you on the train? Coming, Mom. The twins yelled and jumped out of the compartment. Aaron and the boy watched them approach a stout woman. Standing with her were a red-haired boy and a red-haired girl. They seemed like a family. Aaron admired the mother sincerely. Raising 4 kids wasn't easy. Then, another, taller red-haired boy joined the group. Wow, Aaron muttered. That woman is amazing. What did you say? Nothing. Just thinking that woman's a supermom. 5 kids. And they all seem to get along so well. The boy turned to see the twins waving at him. Startled, he quickly pulled his head back inside. Soon, the Hogwarts Express started moving, slowly gathering speed to the rhythm of chug-chug. The boy was thrilled. Buildings blurred past the window. Forests, fields, even the blue sky and white clouds seemed impossibly new and beautiful. He was happier than he'd ever been, away from his aunt and uncle, away from his overbearing cousin, and away from the prospect of a mediocre Muggle school. Then, the boy noticed something strange. Aaron seemed even more excited than he was. His eyes gleamed as he looked out the window. That stopped him. Was Aaron a foster kid like him, oppressed in someone else's home? It didn't look like it. After a moment, the boy tentatively asked, "Aaron? Huh? What's up?" "Nothing, but aren't you, like, super excited?" "Really? Am I showing it that much?" Aaron asked, a little embarrassed, and he cuddled Abe, holding a lollipop in his mouth, trying to rein in his over-the-top expression. The boy nodded. "Yeah, it's pretty obvious." "Well, we're going to magic school." "A little excitement is normal," Aaron said, then turned to the boy. "By the way, I don't even know your name yet." "My name is..." Before the boy could finish, the compartment door slid open. A red-haired boy cautiously peered at them. "Excuse me, is it all right if I sit here? Everywhere else is full." The boy recognized him as the younger brother of the twins who'd helped with his trunk. He patted the seat next to him. "Sure, sit down." "Thanks." The redhead sat down, immediately announcing, "I'm Ron. Ron Weasley." "I'm Harry Potter." The boy said. Then he pointed to Aaron sitting opposite of him and introduced, "His name is Aaron." Puff. Aaron immediately felt like a beeping dog, and almost threw Abe out the window. Was this really happening? All the crazy stuff he hadn't experienced in 11 years was now crammed into his first few days of school. He wasn't even at school yet, and he was meeting the main characters early. Ron's eyes widened, staring at Harry with awe, nervously pointing at his forehead. "So, is it true? I mean, do you really have that? What?" Harry asked, confused. "The scar." "Oh." Harry brushed his hair from his forehead, revealing a lightning-shaped scar, looking a little proud. "Amazing," Ron breathed. "Sigh." Aaron sighed, and it was a deep one. "What's with the sigh?" Ron asked. "He's a celebrity in the wizarding world. The boy who lived. His story is even in some books." Aaron rolled his eyes. "So what? I'm not starstruck, and that scar isn't exactly a good thing for him, but I really didn't expect to be sharing a compartment with the Harry Potter. Right? It's like fate. Aaron, a good one, I think." Chapter 14: The Stark Wealth Gap Between Wizard Families. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Harry and Ron clicked right away, chatting non-stop. Aaron held Abe, gazing out the window, enjoying a rare moment of peace. Suddenly, a click echoed from the doorway. A plump woman with a snack cart appeared, asking, "Anything for you kids?" "No, thanks, I brought my own," Ron mumbled, pulling out a sandwich wrapped in wax paper. "I'm not hungry either," Aaron said, then, thinking of something, glanced at Abe. "But we'll take some," the woman beamed. "Sure thing. What can I get you?" "We have Bertie Bott's every flavor: beans, chocolate frogs, pasties, cakes." "That's plenty," Aaron interrupted, pulling out a galleon. "Just one of each of those 4. That should do it." "One moment." The woman rummaged through her cart, piling the snacks onto the table and handing Aaron some silver sickles in change. "Whoa." Ron's eyes widened. "Aaron, what does your family do?" "You're loaded." "It's nothing, really. Just a small business." "Still. That was a galleon you just tossed around." Ron exclaimed. "I probably don't get that much pocket money in a year." Aaron's lips twitched. This kid acted like he'd never seen money before. "Well, you have, what, a ton of siblings, right? That's gotta be tough." Ron nodded thoughtfully. "Actually, you're off a bit. I've got 5 brothers and a sister." Aaron, no wonder his allowance was less than a galleon, an already poor family raising 7 kids. Yikes. They must have to pinch every penny. I thought your mom was a saint for raising 7 kids. Turns out, your dad's the real MVP, supporting the whole family on one salary. Huh. Just saying, your dad's awesome. Seriously, I admire you, Aaron said, gesturing to the snacks. Don't just sit there, you two. Dig in. But remember to save a few pasties for Abe. Meat fillings preferred. Ron's gaze landed on the white cat. Your pet's awesome. All I've got is this rat, and Percy chucked him out that he pulled a fat gray rat from his pocket. This is Scabbers. He's a lost cause, just eats and sleeps all day. Aaron recoiled, trying to put as much distance as possible between himself and the rat. Abe, however, seemed to pick up on a disgusting scent, and looked both disgusted and on guard. He pointed a white paw at the sleeping rat, hissing under his breath. Ron quickly stuffed Scabbers back into his pocket. He'd almost forgotten that Aaron's pet was a cat. Showing off a rat in front of a cat was practically an invitation to lunch. Don't worry, Abe doesn't eat rats, Aaron said with a wry smile, scrutinizing the rodent. Abe was a holy dragon, not a cat. Whatever was making him react like that was probably no ordinary rat, or not a rat at all, but that was none of his business. Even if Ron was raising some creature he'd never seen before, so what? Ron, relieved, put Scabbers on the table and dove into the snacks. His homemade sandwiches were forgotten, completely outclassed by this feast. Harry picked up a box, glanced at it, and popped some of the beans into his mouth. He made a face, the flavor indescribable. Those are Bertie Bott's every flavor beans. They come in all sorts of flavors, Ron explained. Chocolate, mint, spinach, tripe, even pork liver. George reckons he got one that tasted like boogers. E.W. Aaron suddenly felt queasy and mentally blacklisted the snack. Harry discreetly spat the beans into the trash. He was pretty sure he'd gotten the booger flavor. Moment later, Harry picked up a star-shaped box labeled chocolate frogs and asked cautiously, "There aren't actually frogs in these, are there?" "You'll see," Aaron said with a grin. "It's magic. I only get these for the cards. They've got pictures of famous wizards." "I've collected over 500, Ron said. Harry opened the package, and a frog croaked in the compartment. The pure chocolate frog's eyes flickered, and it hopped toward the window, but before it could reach the glass, Abe snatched it out of the air and proudly crunched the chocolate into his mouth. "Ahem," Aaron coughed pointedly, and Abe froze, looking sheepish. "Enjoy," Aaron said with a smile. "Just take it easy, don't want you getting chocolate all over." Abe paused, then used his paw to smash the chocolate frog into small pieces, daintily popping them into his mouth. Harry and Ron stared, speechless. They'd seen cats before, but never one so clever. "Aaron, how much did you say you paid for that cat? Is he expensive?" Ron asked, dumbfounded. He glanced at Scabbers, and suddenly realized his rat wasn't very appealing. "He was left by my family. I guess," Aaron said awkwardly. He wasn't sure how to explain it, but that's what the dragon skating license said. "I have no idea what he's worth, but I wouldn't sell him for anything." "I get it," Ron said, a little envious. "By the way, what's your last name?" "Gaius. My family is the Gaius family." Ron frowned. He'd never heard of that name before. Harry picked up the card from the chocolate frog box. It showed an old man with a long white beard and spectacles, looking particularly kind. His nose was a bit crooked. Incredibly, the image on the card was moving. Impossible in the Muggle world. The name on the card read, Albus Dumbledore. "It's Dumbledore. I've already got 6, Ron said cheerfully. Harry grinned, then looked down at the card again. The image was gone. This was all pretty amazing for a kid new to the wizarding world. "He's vanished. He doesn't just stay there all the time, right?" Ron said. He'll be back. No big deal, our headmaster is Dumbledore. Seeing him in person is better than looking at a picture. Even so, Harry carefully tucked the card away. The train rumbled through woods and fields, finally reaching a plain. A shimmering lake appeared outside the window, creating a sense of calm. Aaron's mood would have been even better if there wasn't a rat gnawing on food at the table. Ron, would you mind asking Scabbers to be a little quieter? Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to bother you, Ron mumbled, lifting the rat from the table. Hey, Fred taught me a spell to turn him yellow. Want to see? Sure. Apart from Hagrid, I haven't seen any other wizards do spells. Harry said eagerly. Aaron nodded. A little magic could liven up the journey. Chapter 15. I was brainwashed before school started. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ron pulled out his wand, looking a little self-conscious. It was old and definitely not the kind of wand a new student would have. Probably a hand-me-down, maybe even a hand-me-down from a hand-me-down, but considering the Weasley family's money situation, it wasn't a surprise. The wand had probably been in the family for generations. Ron cleared his throat and raised his wand slightly. Sunshine. Before he could get the first word of the spell out, a girl in a black robe appeared at their compartment door, slightly out of breath. Hermione? Huh? The girl looked surprised, as if she didn't expect to know anyone here. Then she spotted where the voice came from. Aaron? You're here too? Hermione said, sounding happy. Where else would I be? Aaron rolled his eyes. I'm a freshman at Hogwarts too. It's kinda the point of this train. Right. Hermione said sheepishly. Hey, have you seen a toad? Neville's lost one. Ugh. Abe groaned softly, and then puffed out his chest proudly. Hermione's face changed slightly. Don't tell me you ate it. Aaron whacked Abe on the head. Relax, he just ate a chocolate frog. We haven't seen the toad, though. Okay. Hermione said, then her gaze landed on Ron's wand. Are you doing magic? Can I watch? Ron cleared his throat again, trying to make his voice sound extra clear. Sunshine, daisies, the smell of butter, turn this dumb, fat rat yellow, and make it flutter. He waved the wand, but nothing happened. Not even a hair changed color. Ron looked at the three of them, embarrassed, his face reddening. Aaron's mouth twitched. Ron, your brothers must be serious pranksters, huh? I thought I'd read a lot of spells, but that's a new one. Are you sure that's even a real spell? Ron didn't know what to say. He was starting to suspect Fred had tricked him. Yeah, that spell didn't seem too effective. Hermione said. I've tried a few simple spells myself, and they've worked pretty well. Hermione pulled out her wand, sat down next to Aaron, and pointed it at Harry's glasses. For example. Before she could finish, Aaron pushed her wand down. Aaron, what are you doing? Hermione asked, annoyed. I just think it's best not to practice spells on people without asking, you know. It's kinda rude and potentially dangerous. If it works, great. But if it doesn't? Hermione then noticed Harry staring at her nervously, with a hint of panic mixed with caution. I'm sorry, could I borrow your glasses? Oh, sure. Harry sighed in relief, took off his glasses, and handed them to Hermione. Hermione waved her wand gently and said the spell, Oculus Reparo. The tape holding the nose pads together vanished, replaced by brand new nose pads. Fixed. Hermione announced. Harry stared at his glasses, wide-eyed. He glanced at Ron, who was equally impressed. Hermione noticed the lightning bolt scar on Harry's forehead and exclaimed, Wow, you're Harry Potter. Wait, Hermione, how do you know him? Aaron asked, surprised. It was one thing for wizards to know Harry Potter. He was practically a celebrity in the wizarding world. But Hermione was from a Muggle family. Muggles usually know next to nothing about the wizarding world. I read about him. He's in a bunch of books about modern wizarding history. Hermione said matter-of-factly. I see. You're a real bookworm. You'll probably end up in Ravenclaw. Ravenclaw? Hermione raised her eyebrows. Actually, I'm hoping for Gryffindor. Dumbledore went there, so you know it's good. Aaron, what about you? Which house are you hoping for? Me? Doesn't really matter, as long as it's not Hufflepuff. But I've got a feeling I'll be in Slytherin. No way, you can't go there. Harry blurted out, then turned red and mumbled, Hagrid said all the dark wizards come from that house. Seriously? Aaron frowned, then smiled dismissively. If I had to guess, I'd say Hagrid probably graduated from Gryffindor. Only a Gryffindor could hate Slytherin that much. But my parents said there aren't any good people in Slytherin either. Ron added. Let me guess, your parents also went to Gryffindor, right? Ron didn't say anything, confirming it. Wow. You guys were brainwashed before you even got to school. If Slytherin is so awful, why does Hogwarts even keep the house around? Wouldn't getting rid of Slytherin make the wizarding world way safer? And as far as I know, Slytherin is the best of the four houses. Slytherin's the worst, Ron muttered. You know who came from there? Ugh. Aaron sighed. Forget it, we'll see. I don't think any house is all good or all bad. There are all kinds of people everywhere, you know. Harry and Ron were silent. Even though they didn't like Slytherin, they knew it wasn't fair to write off an entire house. Exactly. Hermione said, standing up with a smile. I still need to help Neville find his toad, so I'm off. Oh, and you might want to change into your uniforms, we should be almost there. Hermione paused at the door, turned back to Ron, and pointed at her own nose. Hey, you've got something on your nose. Right there. Ron glared at her and started wiping his nose. When he saw the black smudge on his hand, he glared at them. Why didn't you tell me? Sorry, you were on my left, and I couldn't see you, Harry said. Dirt on his nose. Aaron couldn't help but laugh. I thought it was a birthmark. Ron, as night fell, the train got closer and closer to its destination and finally came to a stop with a long whistle. Students in black robes piled out, and the once empty platform was now packed. It wasn't too bad, though. The suitcases were all staying on the train to be delivered to Hogwarts. All right there, first years. This way, please. Come on, first graders, don't be shy, let's go. A big, rough-looking guy with a huge beard was holding a lamp and shouting. That's Hagrid. Harry said excitedly to Ron and Aaron. Giants? Aaron raised his eyebrows. There aren't many giants these days. I've only seen them a couple of times in Diagon Alley. I didn't know there were any at Hogwarts. He's the groundskeeper. Harry said, waving to Hagrid. Chapter 16 Some families symbolize mystery. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hey, Harry. Hagrid grinned, then his eyes landed on Abe in Aaron's arms and lit up. Hagrid, having raised magical creatures for years, had a keen eye. He was certain this cat in clothes, looking almost too cute, was something special. First year, that's a cute cat you got there. Mind if I hold him? Before Aaron could answer, Abe was already shaking his head. Who are you? I don't know you from Adam, why would I let you hold me, star? Sorry, Abe's family. You see how it is. Gotta respect his wishes, Aaron said. He wasn't keen on Hagrid getting a closer look. It wasn't just the unkempt look that could scare kids, but the weird smell clinging to his clothes was enough to keep anyone away. Besides, this giant was a gamekeeper, likely more sensitive to animals than anything else. As a first year, there was no need to reveal that he had a dragon. Too bad, Hagrid shrugged, unbothered. This kid would be at Hogwarts for 7 years, plenty of chances later. First years, this way to the boats. Come on, follow me. Hagrid resumed his duties, leading the first years down a long, slick, dark path to the edge of the Black Lake. Across the lake stood a massive castle on the hillside. Spires and pale yellow light shone from its windows, adding a touch of mystery under the moonlight. The first years crossed by boat, 4 to a boat. Hagrid, being so large, took up a whole boat himself. Aaron, Harry, Ron, and Hermione climbed into a small boat. They looked around, excited and curious, occasionally gasping in awe. The boat quickly reached the other side. After making sure no one was missing, Hagrid pointed to the stairs ahead. Head straight up. Professor McGonagall will take it from here. The first years followed his instructions. At the top of the stairs, a witch in green robes and a pointed black hat waited. She didn't look too pleased, probably from the wait. Welcome to Hogwarts. In a moment, you'll pass through these doors to join your classmates. But before you take your seats, you must be sorted into your houses: Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin. Your house will be like your home during your time here. Good deeds earn points for your house, and breaking the rules will cost you points. At the end of the year, the house with the most points wins the House Cup, a great honor. Just then, a croaking sound came from the front of the group. A chubby boy's eyes widened as he recognized the sound. Neville often lost his toad, Trevor. He'd lost it before getting on the train, but Hermione helped him find it. Now, at Hogwarts, it was gone again, nowhere to be found. Now, here it was. He couldn't deny his excitement, but just as Neville reached for it, the toad hopped into his hand. Trevor. Neville hugged his toad, overjoyed. He didn't understand how, but he didn't care. He had Trevor back. Professor McGonagall noticed the black wand tucked in Aaron's sleeve. A faint smile touched her lips, thinking the school had recruited a talented wizard. The sorting ceremony will begin shortly. You might want to tidy yourselves up before you go in. It will be held in front of the entire school. With that, Professor McGonagall left the first years to themselves. Then, a blond boy turned to Harry, curiosity in his voice. So, it's true. Harry Potter has come to Hogwarts. The first years looked at each other, the name Harry Potter sparking their interest. The blond boy, flanked by 2 hulking figures, introduced Harry. This is Crabbe, this is Goyle. I'm Malfoy, the blond boy said, stepping up to Harry. Making sure he heard correctly, he added, Draco Malfoy. Pfft. Ron couldn't help but laugh. Malfoy glared at him. Think my name's funny, do you? I don't need to ask yours. Red hair, hand-me-down robes, you must be a Weasley. Ron pursed his lips, glaring back, unable to deny the truth. Malfoy turned back to Harry. You'll find some wizarding families are better than others, Potter. Don't associate with the wrong sort. I can help you. Draco extended his hand. I think I can tell who's who. Thanks, but no thanks, Harry said calmly. Draco's face tightened. Harry Potter had turned down his offer of friendship, and in front of everyone, unacceptable. Before he could respond, Aaron coughed lightly. It's true some wizarding families are more prestigious, but maybe a softer approach would get you better results. Malfoy spun around to face Aaron, his nose in the air. Who are you? I don't need lessons from you. Aaron. Harry was worried. Malfoy seemed like a spoiled rich kid. What if Aaron stood up for him and faced the consequences? Aaron ignored him, extending his hand with a smile. Gaius. Aaron Gaius. Pleasure to meet you. Gaius. From the Gaius family? Malfoy's eyes narrowed, his arrogance receding. It doesn't matter. What matters is my attitude and your reaction, Aaron said with a smile, gesturing with his hand. Draco hesitantly shook Aaron's hand. Likewise. Exactly. Attitude is everything when making friends. You're coming on too strong, like you're collecting slaves instead of making friends. Few people will respond well to that. Thank you, Malfoy said stiffly, as if the words were foreign to him. Ron, wide-eyed, subtly pulled Harry away from the pair. He'd been warming up to Aaron, but seeing him interact with Malfoy was a turn-off. Crabbe and Goyle exchanged surprised glances. As Draco's followers, they knew how hard it was for him to say thank you. Professor McGonagall approached, observing the handshake with a raised eyebrow. She quickly regained her composure. Everyone ready? Follow me. Malfoy, how famous is this Gaius family? I don't recall them being one of the Sacred 28. Goyle asked, confused. You wouldn't know. I heard it from my father, Draco said. The Sacred 28 represent noble bloodlines, except for those who disgrace pure blood status, like the Weasleys, but there are 4 other wizarding families that represent mystery. Their origins are lost to time, and you won't find much about them in the history books. Rumor has it they're always guarding something. They might not be well known, but their history, connections, and influence rival pure-blood families. My father says you can never imagine what secrets these hidden families hold. Voldemort and the previous Dark Lord both sought their support, but were either rejected or couldn't find them. The Gaius family is one of those mysterious families. If you can befriend them, do it. If not, at least don't make enemies. Chapter 17. Is this the only hat? You are listening at novelfull.audio. The freshmen followed Professor McGonagall into a lavish auditorium, walking in pairs. Small fires flickered on the walls, and countless candles hung from the ceiling, bathing the room in light. Upperclassmen were already seated at 4 long tables representing their houses. At the head of each table was an empty space, ready for the new recruits. This is amazing, Aaron said, gazing up at the ceiling. It looked just like the night sky he'd seen by the Black Lake. It's enchanted. I read about it in Hogwarts, a history. Hermione chimed in. Aaron looked surprised, then gave her a thumbs up. Wow, you're sharper than I thought. I bet you're the only one in our year who even noticed that. Hermione, let me ask you this, when you read a book, do you also want to know everything about the author's life? How did you know? Hermione looked astonished. Aaron rolled his eyes. Just a hunch. But seriously, are you sure you don't want to be in Ravenclaw? You'd be a perfect fit. You'd make tons of friends who are just as into that stuff as you are, and you'd probably be the best student. Well. Hermione hesitated. We'll see. It's not really up to us where we end up. True, Aaron shrugged, dropping the subject. Still, he could tell she had her heart set on Gryffindor. Professor McGonagall led them to a raised platform. Albus Dumbledore stood in the center, his long white beard unmistakable. Teachers and Hagrid stood to his left and right. In front of them, on the steps, was a stool. A battered, old, pointed hat sat on top. It was covered in patches, and a thick layer of dust obscured its original color. Is that the Sorting Hat? It's not what I expected. Aaron said, clearly disappointed. The thought of wearing that filthy old thing made him cringe, and to think, this ratty hat was supposed to decide their house. How reliable could that be? It might be an ancient magical artifact, but trusting it with the next 7 years of their lives felt a little ridiculous. As if hearing Aaron's thoughts, the hat on the stool seemed to wrinkle into a human face and gave him a cheeky grin. It wasn't the first time it had encountered a skeptical freshman like Aaron, but he'd have to wear it whether he liked it or not. Hey! Watch it with that attitude, Aaron muttered back, the Sorting Hat's smiling face wrinkled even further. I love that you can't do anything about it, it seemed to say. Please wait here, Professor McGonagall instructed. Before we begin, Professor Dumbledore has a few words for you all. The white-haired old man rose from his seat. I have a few announcements to make at the start of term. First-year students, pay attention. Entering the Forbidden Forest is strictly prohibited. Also, Mr. Filch, our caretaker, would like me to remind you that the corridor on the 3rd floor and the corridor to the right are also off-limits. If you value your lives, stay away. Aaron glanced in the direction of Dumbledore's right hand. A tall, gaunt, balding old man with gloomy eyes was staring at them, as if waiting for them to mess up. A black and white cat sat at his feet, looking just as menacing. After Dumbledore finished, Professor McGonagall picked up a long roll of parchment. "When I call your name, please come forward. I will place the sorting hat on your head, and it will determine your house." "Hold on," Aaron interrupted, stepping forward. "Professor McGonagall, is this the only sorting hat Hogwarts has? Can I get a different one? I mean, it's filthy and kind of creepy, and that's not ideal for someone who likes things clean." A ripple of laughter spread through the hall. Professor McGonagall looked surprised, then said regretfully, "There is only one sorting hat. Could you at least wash it?" "Then maybe I could handle it," Aaron suggested. That was the last straw. The sorting hat snapped, "I can't handle you. Forget it. I was asking the professor. Is it okay for you to just jump in like that? Props are just props. Don't get too big for your britches, or you'll lose all sense of yourself," Aaron retorted coldly, then turned back to Professor McGonagall. "Professor, is that doable?" Professor McGonagall glanced at Dumbledore, but he remained silent, and she didn't know how to respond. "Fine. I get it, Professor," Aaron said, letting her off the hook with a sigh. "Please, continue with the sorting ceremony." "Very well," Professor McGonagall said, giving Aaron a long look before calling the first name. "Hannah Abbott." A rosy-cheeked girl nervously sat on the stool as Professor McGonagall placed the hat on her head. "Let's see now." The sorting hat murmured for a moment, then suddenly announced, "I know, Hufflepuff." The upperclassmen at the Hufflepuff table erupted in applause and cheers, welcoming the new recruit, and Hannah hurried over to an empty seat. "Susan Bones." Professor McGonagall called the next name. "Hufflepuff." The sorting hat declared happily, even faster than before. "Terry Boot." "Ravenclaw." The sorting ceremony continued. Gryffindor, Ravenclaw, Hufflepuff, and Slytherin all gained new students, and cheers erupted from the long tables below. Ron lived up to his parents' and brothers' expectations and was sorted into Gryffindor, as was Hermione. Notably, when it was Draco Malfoy's turn, the sorting hat barely touched his hair before declaring his house, as if he were born for it. 10 minutes later, only Harry Potter and Aaron Gaius remained standing in front of the platform. Harry Potter. When Professor McGonagall announced the legendary name, the entire auditorium fell silent. The students at the long tables began whispering, those in the back craning their necks, eager to get a glimpse of him. Even Dumbledore sat up a little straighter, watching the boy with the lightning scar on his forehead with anticipation. "Don't be nervous. Just follow your gut," Aaron said. "Even if it doesn't help much." "Thanks," Harry said, walking slowly forward and sitting on the chair. This is a tough one." "Really tough," the sorting hat muttered, beginning its analysis. "I see a lot of courage, a good heart, talent, and a real desire to prove yourself, but where to put you?" The tip of the sorting hat flopped back and forth, looking particularly conflicted. "Not Slytherin, not Slytherin." Harry muttered under his breath, eyes closed, terrified of ending up in the house he dreaded most. Aaron watched with interest. Clearly, Hagrid and Ron had brainwashed Harry, who now instinctively believed he belonged in Gryffindor and had a strong aversion to Slytherin. Without his own opinions, others would likely dominate his life, but that was Harry's choice, and had little to do with him. "Are you sure you don't want to be in Slytherin?" the sorting hat asked, having clearly heard Harry's plea. "You could go far there. You've got the brains for it. Slytherin could help you achieve great things, no doubt about it." Harry remained firm, repeating, "Not Slytherin." "All right. If you're sure, then it's Gryffindor." Harry opened his eyes, relief and a smile spreading across his face. Because of his fame, the response from Gryffindor was louder than ever. Percy Weasley stood up and shook his hand enthusiastically. Fred and George clapped and chanted, "We've got Potter." Most of the teachers and staff at the head table applauded, and Dumbledore even raised his glass in Harry's direction. After the cheers died down, all eyes turned to Aaron, who had yet to be sorted. Chapter 18 finally entered the snake courtyard. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Aaron Gaius, Professor McGonagall announced, reading Aaron's full name. Ha! Finally your turn, kiddo. The Sorting Hat cackled. Aaron held up his hands. Honestly, I didn't want to be last. Everyone before me was so impressive, it puts a lot of pressure on the ones after. He carefully lifted Abe off his head. The critter had somehow climbed up there, and walked toward the steps. Professor McGonagall, one last question. Alright, shoot. If I hit this hat with a cleaning spell, it won't hold a grudge during the sorting, right? Professor McGonagall glanced at the sorting hat in her hands, hesitating. Probably not. Definitely not. The Sorting Hat declared proudly. I was once Godric Gryffindor's own wizarding hat, blessed by all 4 founders of Hogwarts. They were too smart to stoop to something so petty. Good to know. Aaron nodded, satisfied, and pulled out his black wand. The Sorting Hat started to tremble. Then, the meaning of Aaron's earlier words hit it. What are you doing? I'm warning you, don't even think about it. I'm the Sorting Hat, and I'm way older than you think. Old or not, you're still just a hat. No need to get a big head about it, Aaron retorted, and with a wave of his wand, said, clean up. No. The Sorting Hat wailed as a cloud of white smoke erupted, blasting away layers of dust. It still looked beat up, but was easily 100 times cleaner. How dare you? The Sorting Hat sputtered, looking ferocious even though it was, well, a hat. Hey, you said you wouldn't hold a grudge, Aaron replied innocently, then calmly sat down on the stool. Aaron's antics had stunned all the students into silence. No one had ever dared to pull something like this before. The professors at the head table watched Aaron with mixed expressions, some amused, some frowning, some just plain dumbfounded. Mostly, they were intrigued. Professor McGonagall, you can start now, Aaron said evenly. Oh. Professor McGonagall blinked, startled, then carefully placed the Sorting Hat on Aaron's head. Huh. The moment the Sorting Hat touched Aaron's head, it seemed shocked. How is that possible? I thought you were just being a show-off, but you're even tougher to place than the last one. You've got courage to spare, unparalleled bravery, a tough streak, a sharp mind, and a hidden thirst for knowledge. And most of all, you have an insane amount of talent and potential. I've seen countless students over the millennia, and maybe 10 have been on your level, and even they barely made it. No one has ever wielded such powerful magic at your age. Are you really only 11? Isn't that obvious? Aaron muttered. And don't you think you're being a little too chatty? Just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. The wizarding world is bigger than Hogwarts, you know. By the way, have you made up your mind yet? No, you need to give me some time to think. You're so well-rounded. Each house would be a good fit for you. What's your purpose in coming here? What do you desire most? Do you really need to get so personal? Aaron asked, annoyed. He could feel the old hat trying to pry into his thoughts, but it wasn't going to find anything past his occlumency defenses. Of course, the Sorting Hat said. Some crave knowledge, some power, some resources, some. Forget all that. What I really want is genuine friendship. Friendship? That's rare. If it's friendship. Slytherin. The Sorting Hat bellowed. The Slytherin students erupted in applause and cheers. The Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, and Ravenclaw students groaned. They'd all heard the Sorting Hat's comments. The Snake House was about to get a seriously impressive student. Just as I figured, Aaron murmured. He picked up Abe and strolled over to the Slytherin table. Professor McGonagall gathered up the freshman list and the Sorting Hat and returned to her seat. Draco and his goons greeted him warmly, and the prefects welcomed him. Aaron even saw Professor Snape, head of Slytherin, give him a slight nod from the head table, which was flattering. Aaron, I knew you'd be in Slytherin. It's the only house worthy of a genius like you. Did you see Weasley's face just now? He looked so green. Draco said gleefully. Whoa, ease up, Aaron said sheepishly. I don't think of myself as a genius. And Weasley's facial expressions have nothing to do with me. Ding. 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 Professor McGonagall tapped her goblet with a golden spoon. Please, everyone, attention. Dumbledore stood up from the head table, raised his hands, and beamed at the students below. Now, let the feast begin. Instantly, the 4 long tables filled with food. In front of Aaron was beef, lamb chops, pork chops, potatoes, pudding, peas, carrots, corn, something for everyone, even the pickiest eaters. Abe scrambled onto the table and pointed a tiny paw at the chicken drumsticks, giving Aaron a pleading look. All right, Aaron chuckled, putting the drumsticks in front of him. Just then, a gray-white ghost popped up from under the table right next to Draco, across from Aaron. Draco jumped so hard he dropped his fork on his plate. Don't worry, that's the Bloody Baron, the Slytherin house ghost, said an older student. Ghosts are generally harmless to the living, and there were ghosts floating everywhere in the hall, but the one next to Draco was terrifying. He looked gaunt, and his robes were covered in silvery bloodstains. He looked like a serial killer sitting across from him while trying to eat. Aaron felt stressed. He gave Draco a look of deep sympathy. After a half hour or so, the food and cutlery vanished in an instant, leaving the table spotless. After eating his fill, Aaron leaned back in his chair, feeling like the pet in his arms had gained a few pounds. All right, time for bed, Dumbledore announced. But first, one last tradition, singing the school song. He looked genuinely excited, as if this was the most important part of the entire ceremony. Hogwarts has a school song? Aaron asked a freshman nearby, who looked just as confused. Then he glanced at an older student, whose face was twisted in agony. Aaron could see the torment and embarrassment in his eyes. Dumbledore flicked his wand, and a golden ribbon unfurled, displaying the lyrics, Hogwarts, Hogwarts, Hoggy-Warty Hogwarts, teach us something, please, whether we be old and bald. Or young with scabby knees. Everyone, pick a tune you like, Dumbledore said cheerfully. And, begin. The next moment, a deafening cacophony erupted in the hall. The combination of clashing melodies and bizarre lyrics created an ear-splitting racket. Aaron wanted to cover his ears, but that would have been impolite. In desperation, he held Abe on his head. The creature used its front paws to cover the ears under his hat, while its back paws pressed against Aaron's ears. It was subtle, natural, and barely noticeable unless you were looking closely. Chapter 19 Tasks for the First Year. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After dinner, the Slytherin prefect led the new students down to the basement. He pointed to a stone door in a damp wall, saying, "This is the entrance to the common room. The password changes every 2 weeks. This week's word is glory." The stone door swung open, and they filed in one by one. The common room was a translucent space at the bottom of the lake. In the center and along the walls were fireplaces, sofas, and coffee tables, as well as a few bookshelves. The walls were black marble, and the ceiling was a transparent semicircle carved with crystal. Looking up, you could see the sparkling water, and through the windows, the occasional giant octopus or strange creature swam by. It felt like an underwater museum. The boys' dorms are on the left, and the girls are on the right. Your trunks have already been taken to your rooms. If you have any questions, come find me or Professor Snape. We'll help if we can. Now, get some sleep. You have classes in the morning. The beds were already made, which was a relief. Everyone was exhausted after a long day of travel. Nothing sounded better than sleep. Aaron opened his trunk and took out a soft, plush little bed. He carefully placed it inside his own and covered it with a towel. Then he changed into his pajamas and climbed into bed. He was instantly overcome with sleepiness, but then he remembered he hadn't checked in for the day. He jolted awake. System, check in, Aaron mumbled to himself. Congratulations, host, for checking in at Hogwarts and receiving 10 magic points. 10. Aaron was wide awake now. He'd hoped the Hogwarts check-in reward would be generous, maybe 5 magic points, but this was double that, even 5 times what he usually got. He was surprised. That's right, host, 10 magic points. Furthermore, Hogwarts is a place of special significance. Your first check-in here has unlocked the system's task function. You can earn magic points and other magical items by completing tasks. Do you want to enable it? Absolutely. Enable it. Aaron cheered inwardly. After 3 years, he finally saw a way to make things easier. No way was he giving that up. Okay, here are 3 system tasks for your first year. Help Slytherin win the House Cup. Reward, 500 magic points. No penalty for failure. Do you accept? Accept. Aaron didn't hesitate. That was a piece of cake. Slytherin was practically synonymous with winning at Hogwarts, with 6 straight victories. He could probably collect that reward in his sleep, obtain the approval of at least 3 professors. Reward, 500 magic points. No penalty for failure. Do you accept? Accept, again, no hesitation. Hogwarts had plenty of professors. Impressing 3 of them wouldn't be that hard with his talent. Kill Voldemort's remaining soul fragment. Reward, 1000 magic points. Penalty for failure, 500 magic points. Do you accept? Aaron hesitated now. Voldemort was weak now, but still way out of his league. Even a senior wizard might struggle with that. He was very likely to fail. System, can I get help with this task? Yes, but you must participate and contribute more than 50%, or the mission will be judged as a failure. Okay. Accepted, Aaron said firmly. Fortune favors the bold, as they say. If he had to involve 2 professors, then so be it. He didn't think Voldemort's remnant soul stood a chance, by the way, who was Voldemort's soul fragment attached to these days? He thought it was some professor. This was going to be difficult. When choosing teammates, he needed to be sure none of them were moles. The next morning, Aaron woke up. He'd slept like a log. Maybe it was the surprise of the new check-in location, or maybe it was the lack of an alarm clock or Jean's knocking, but he'd slept until he naturally woke up after putting on his wizard robes. Aaron looked at the sleeping baby dragon in its basket, and after thinking about it, picked it up. Even if bringing pets to class was frowned upon, this guy was a dragon. No matter how harmless Abe looked, he wasn't leaving it unattended in the dorm. What if it got lost? Aaron, you up? Draco walked over with 2 sleepy-looking sidekicks. Just woke up, Aaron nodded, then looked surprised. Do you guys usually get up this early? Trying to, Draco said proudly, glaring at the 2 bigger boys behind him. These 2 are lazy and took forever to wake up. But Aaron, didn't your parents assign you any hangers-on? Aaron paused, thinking of the chattering housekeeper and the groups of mages secretly following him. A wry smile touched his lips. Maybe, but I don't want them interfering with my school life. Meaning? Sorry, can't explain. Let's just say my family's followers have a different interpretation of the word. Draco nodded, understanding. Though curious, he was smart enough not to push the issue. The 4 of them left the dorm together, first going to the cafeteria for breakfast, then heading to the Transfiguration classroom with their textbooks. It wasn't class time yet, or maybe they were just early. There weren't many students there yet, just a cat on the podium. Besides the 2 Gryffindors, they were the only Slytherins. Aaron and Draco sat at the same table, while Crabbe and Goyle predictably took the seats behind them. Aaron, Hermione said, pointing at Abe, who Aaron had placed on the table. She looked happy but also concerned. Why did you bring him to class? Couldn't help it. This guy's a handful. I wouldn't trust leaving him in the dorm, Aaron said. I don't think there's a rule against bringing pets to class, is there? Well, no. But it feels a little rude. Thanks for your concern. If it's a problem, I'll talk to Professor McGonagall. Abe's different. He's family, And he means a lot to me, and my family. Seeing Aaron's serious expression, Hermione didn't press the matter and just looked at her textbook. After a moment of hesitation, Draco whispered to Aaron, I had someone look into it yesterday. Granger's parents are Muggles. Yeah, so? Draco's eyes widened in surprise. You know. Then why are you friends with a mudblood like her? Shoo. Keep it down. Aaron quickly covered Draco's mouth, but it was too late. Several people in the classroom had heard, including Hermione Granger. The little girl looked deeply hurt, her breath catching in her throat and her eyes turning red, but she fought back the tears. Crabbe and Goyle just watched indifferently, and even the other Gryffindor student didn't know how to comfort her. Hermione, don't be upset. Aaron was at a loss. This was the first time he'd had to deal with a girl's tears. He didn't know how to explain, and finally sighed. Leave it to me. I'll let Abe keep you company for now. Aaron put Abe on Hermione's desk. Just as he'd hoped, the adorable cat seemed to cheer her up a little. Aaron sighed in relief, then turned to face Draco, who looked unfazed. He said calmly, apologize. Why? Am I wrong? She doesn't deserve to be your friend, Draco said angrily, as if offended that Aaron was defending a mudblood. Draco, being pureblood isn't a reason to look down on others. And who I choose to be friends with is none of your business, Aaron said patiently. But she. Draco realized he was being unreasonable. He had no right to interfere with Aaron's life, but apologizing to a mudblood was out of the question. His pride wouldn't allow it, and his father certainly wouldn't allow it. There's no way I'm apologizing to a mudblood. I figured you'd say that. Aaron shook his head helplessly and said, okay, let's make a little bet. If your grades are better than Hermione's this term, you don't have to apologize, and I'll owe the Malfoy family a favor on behalf of the Gaius family. But if your grades are lower than Hermione's, you have to apologize to her and never use the word mudblood again. How's that sound? Chapter 20 Performance in Transfiguration Class. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Draco was stunned, and so was everyone else in the classroom unnoticed by them. The cat on the podium's pupils narrowed slightly, like it had been startled. Nobody expected Aaron to go to such lengths for a Gryffindor girl, especially using a favor from his family. Used wisely, that favor could be incredibly valuable in the future. A favor from a secretive wizarding family was no joke. So, do you take the bet? Aaron asked, confident that Draco wouldn't refuse. I agree. How could I not? But, are you serious? I believe in my judgment. Hermione might not have a pureblood background, but she's the most talented witch I've ever seen. Until the end of the semester, I expect you to treat her with respect. Can you manage that? Okay, no problem, Draco replied. Pleased with Draco dealt with, Aaron went over to Hermione. You can relax now. I've given you a fair shot to prove yourself. Okay. Hermione nodded, anxiety creeping into her voice. What if I let you down? What if I lose? You won't. You might be a little behind me in this area, but that's it. But what if? Hermione insisted, doubts about her abilities plaguing her for the first time. Don't worry. Even if you do lose, Draco will be more restrained. At least he won't throw around the word mudblood so casually. As for the family favor, it's not a big deal. Malfoy's smart enough to know they can't ask for something impossible. Thank you, Hermione said, blushing as she handed Abe back to Aaron. Draco's not a bad kid, but his father's been filling his head with blood purity nonsense since he was born. It'll take time for him to change, so try not to take it personally. Aaron then approached another Gryffindor student. What's your name? Susan Bones, the girl replied, cheeks flushed with embarrassment. I want this bet to stay between us. Can you keep a secret? Susan nodded emphatically, promising to keep it to herself. Thanks. As the other students trickled into the classroom and opened their books to study, they noticed Professor McGonagall was late. Suddenly, Harry and Ron burst through the door, looking frantic. "We made it." "Another minute, and she would have been furious," Ron said, relieved. Just then, the cat on the podium leaped down, transforming into Professor McGonagall in a green robe. She walked toward the two late students, an amused look on her face. "That's a neat trick," Ron mumbled, unsure if he was referring to her transfiguration or using it to catch them. "Thank you for the compliment, Mr. Weasley. Perhaps I should turn you and Mr. Potter into pocket watches, so at least one of you can keep track of time." "We got lost," Harry offered. "Then become a map," Professor McGonagall retorted. "You don't need a map to find your seats." The two exchanged wry smiles before slinking to an empty table. "Now that everyone's here, let's begin. Transfiguration is the most complex and dangerous magic you'll learn at Hogwarts." Professor McGonagall then glared at Ron and Harry. "Anyone misbehaving in my class will be asked to leave and never allowed to return." Aaron, Draco, Hermione, and others exchanged uneasy glances. While their bet was their business, the presence of a professor who knew about it added a layer of pressure. "Professor, Aaron began hesitantly. "I'm aware of the situation before class. Can you handle things yourselves?" Professor McGonagall said with a smile. "Understood," Aaron replied, relieved. Professor McGonagall started her lecture. Magic wasn't just about waving a wand and saying a spell. She spent a long time explaining the theory and spot-checked students' notes. Once satisfied, she demonstrated the transfiguration technique. With a flick of her wand, the matchbox on her desk opened, and the matches inside flew to each student's desk. "Let's see if you can turn this match into a needle before class ends." The students eagerly grabbed their wands, ready to try, but the results were underwhelming. Most of the matches remained untouched. Hermione tried several times, and the match slowly turned into a toothpick. It was imperfect, but at least it had changed. "Very good, Miss Granger," Professor McGonagall praised. Draco glanced at Hermione, a flash of determination in his eyes. He waved his wand more forcefully. The match began to change rapidly, the end becoming pointed, but before he could celebrate, smoke started to rise, and a small flame flickered before quickly dying out. "Mr. Malfoy, not bad, but you could use a little emotional control," Professor McGonagall said with a smile. Draco remained silent, staring at the charred match and sighing. He tried his best, and was still better than most students, including Harry Potter. He understood that he probably couldn't beat Granger, a mudblood, at Transfiguration. But there were other subjects, other courses. He refused to believe he'd be outdone by her in everything. He noticed another match on the table and looked at Aaron, who was petting the cat, with surprise. "Aren't you going to try?" "Sorry, I was admiring your efforts." Aaron waved his wand gently, barely touching the match transformed. The sides sharpened, the middle thinned, and a tiny pinhole formed at the end. It was still made of wood, but it was undeniably a wooden needle. That's amazing. You did it on the first try." Draco stammered. Professor McGonagall, hearing the commotion, approached. Seeing the wooden needle on the desk, she looked pleased. "It seems Slytherin has gained a very talented student this year." "Aaron Gaius. Slytherin gets 5 points." Her voice carried through the classroom. Everyone looked at Aaron with envy. "Thank you, Professor, but could you teach me how to turn it into iron?" "I'm afraid not. I believe in your talent, but aiming too high is not what a freshman should do." Professor McGonagall smiled and turned the wooden needle back into a match. "First, you need to master the basic transformation. You have to fully understand the appearance of magic, so keep practicing." "Okay." Aaron nodded with a hint of disappointment, then waved his wand again, turning the match into a wooden chicken leg and tossing it to his pet. Abe perked up immediately, jumping towards the drumstick and sniffing it. Snap. Abe looked angry, and its white dragon claw struck the table, smashing the chicken leg back into a match and leaving a shallow scratch. "Wow! Professor McGonagall looked on in astonishment. I may have to take back what I said. Mr. Gaius, you've already mastered the art of transfiguration. But... She pointed her wand at Abe, who appeared harmless, even wincing in pain from hitting the table too hard. Are you sure that's just an ordinary cat? Aaron quickly scooped Abe into his arms. Of course. I'm positive.